Welcome, everyone. My name is Dave Holman. I'm a member of the Greater Education Council of Connecticut. We have as our mission to facilitate, coordinate, and communicate a united statewide effort to educate, expose, and prevent the woke indoctrination and sexualization of all children in the state of Connecticut. One of the ways we attempt to do this is by conducting interviews with influential people and organizations pertaining to current educational issues. One of these issues is the war in Ukraine. In preparation for this interview, I reached out to Ralph Russo. He's the head of the Social Studies Department in the Guilford school system, and I asked him to let me know if we're teaching about Ukraine, the war in Ukraine, in Guilford High School, and if so, what are they teaching? But he didn't get back to me. So the devastating war in Ukraine has been raging for almost 3 years now and has had worldwide ramifications. In recent days, Russian President Vladimir Putin has threatened to use nuclear weapons. World War III could be on the horizon. In an effort to learn the real story about how this war began, to shed light on the destruction which has occurred in Ukraine, and to explore what can be done to stop the carnage, we are pleased to have with us today Peter Goletz. Peter is currently a financial advisor for Ameriprise Financial Services. He is a resident of Guilford who has been very active in our town government. Pete has served on several Guilford boards and commissions, including the Board of Finance, the Planning and Zoning Committee, the Planning Committee, most recently the Pension Committee. He has been a member of the Regional Commission for South Central Connecticut and the Guilford Rotary Club. Finally, Peter is a current member of the Ukrainian Institute of America and is on the Investment Advisor Committee to the Ukrainian Catholic University Foundation. Peter has relatives in Ukraine, and there is no one more qualified than Peter to give us a real story about what is happening in Ukraine. So thank you for being with us today, Peter.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about your Ukrainian background.
Well, my parents were born in Ukraine. My mother is from Vinnytsia Oblast, which is Hyson Rayon, Hubnik. I get emotional about these things. My father's from Vinnytsia Oblast. They were taken by the Germans to Germany to work in slave labor camps.
Oh, wow.
And at the end of the war, they were left there in the DP camp. And we had a family in Macungie, Pennsylvania, that decided to sponsor us. So we came to Allentown. And so basically, we still have a lot of relatives there. A lot of them have come to the States, in particular now with the crises that happen. My wife has family in Kherson, where basically the Russians have been shelling Kherson. Her aunt's house was destroyed. She moved to Odessa.
It's all right. Take your time.
See, this is personal.
That's why you're here, Pete. People need to hear this.
What they do in Kherson, by the way, we use drones to attack Russian military convoys. They use drones to attack civilians that are walking, shopping, just talking and so forth. So it's a terrorist organization. It's a gangster country with terrorist intentions. But so we came, I was born in Germany. I was born in Ludwigsburg. We came to the States. This family by the name of Moroz sponsored us, and we stayed, and that's how I got to Allentown. My first language was Ukrainian. My first word that I spoke was okay. I remember coming over, and they were talking to me in English on the boat. I came through Ellis Island, by the way, So, we've had the first, I'm really a refugee from Germany, a Ukrainian refugee. You have the second wave here now. So we still have relatives in Lvivska Oblast, which is Western Ukraine, and I have relatives in Kramatorsk, but they have relocated to other areas. Some went to Poland. My wife had a cousin that was living in Zaporozhye, which is now where the nuclear reactor is, and the Russians were shelling. And it's kind of funny because my wife called when the Russians started going in eastern Ukraine, and she asked her how she's doing. She says, well, it's getting bad. The Russians are shelling everything and so forth. And she says, well, get on a train and come to Poland. Just get on the train. She says, well, I haven't packed. She says, don't pack, just go.
Really, get out of there.
So she's here now, living in Madison, with jobs. But it was rough. It was really rough. My first experience, though, going to school, we came here in February of 1951, and is Valentine's Day because I went to school, didn't know anybody, and I got all these cards. I came home, it's like, why?
Cards from
Valentine's Day.
Oh, Valentine's Day card. You didn't know what Valentine's Day was.
I had no idea. I came walking home, I said, I got a box full of cards. I don't know why, but it took me years.
All these hearts on them.
Yeah, my mother didn't know either, so it's kind of interesting. So, yeah, it's been a hard situation, and it really tears me up because there's a lot of Americans, in particular on the Republican sides in Congress, that they talk about the Putin agenda, and it really makes me extremely angry because there's a lot of disinformation, and I have information that I like to cover, but we can do that later, I guess. I wanted to cover that, but I hate talking about my personal experiences because it brings in bad times.
Well, we need this information. People don't know this stuff. Now, I understand your wife is from Belarus.
That's right.
So she's very familiar with Russia and their brutality.
Right, but actually, she has a lot of relatives in Ukraine. Her last name is Polishchuk, which is a Ukrainian name, but there's a lot of Ukrainian names in Belarus. So, but she has good experience in Belarus or in Ukraine. I mean, her aunt, she talks to her aunt like 4 or 5 times a week, and she's now in Odessa because her house was destroyed. So she had to move from there.
Now, how old was your wife when she came over here?
Probably in her 30s.
30s. All right. So she lived under Russian control.
She went to school there. She's highly educated, has a master's degree in engineering. So she's pretty smart gal.
How did she get out?
She was basically on a tourist visa, and overextended her stay, and I met her, and that was it.
Good. So you got married, and she was able to stay.
Well, I mean, we got married because we liked each other.
Yeah, well, true.
So we've been married 20 years.
That's great, Pete. That's great. So, where do you want to start? I mean, to understand Russia's invasion of Ukraine, where should we start?
Well, I think probably we should start 1991 when Ukraine became independent at that time. And when Ukraine became independent, they had the 3rd largest nuclear arsenal in the world. They had 1,900 nuclear warheads. And they had 1,700 fighter jets. They had bombers. They also had all kinds of strategic missiles. It was a formidable country.
That was when Boris Yeltsin, right?
Well, actually, it was 1994. I guess it was Gorbachev. Gorbachev is the one that tried to instill democracy in the Soviet Union, and he was the first one. He got removed, and then Yeltsin came in, and but they signed what they call the Budapest Memorandum, saying that, look, Ukraine, you're a new country, give your nuclear weapons away, give your bombers away, give your fighter jets away.
Did they give them away, or were they destroyed?
No, well, they gave them away
To who?
Apparently, just recently, I think it was last week, someone in the State Department said, well, look, Russia has violated every single peace treaty, so why don't we give the nuclear weapons back to Ukraine?
Oh, so we've got all those weapons.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. Some of it was destroyed. Some of it was given over. The missiles were given to the Russians. The Russians, when they attacked Ukraine, they were using some of the missiles that Ukraine gave to
Oh,
them,
my
so they're
God.
coming back that way. Same with the bombers. Some of the bombers that Ukraine gave back, they're using. I'm not sure where the nuclear bombs came into the picture, because someone said that we should return them to to Ukraine, because they're not. Of course, Putin says that was in the treaty, okay, because that was the treaty with the previous administration 20 years ago, whatever. So, but anyway, they gave that with the idea, the intentions of having security, having someone basically guaranteeing their sovereignty as a country, and the signatories of that was the English, Great Britain, the United States, and Russia, which we all know Russia never honors any kind of treaty, and so they gave up the weapons, and what happened then. In 19, well, we have to go real back far, because going back, after the Soviet Union was established, in 1932, Ukraine had a lot of autonomy, and they had a very difficult time with the collectivization. They couldn't collectivize the farms in Ukraine because of the fact that Ukrainian farmers were independent, and Russians, communists call them all kulaks, because they call a kulak basically is not like a massive farmer like you have in the Midwest, but basically he had some cows and so forth. So they were not cooperating, and and why would they? Someone comes in to your farm and says, now you don't own this farm. Now it's part of the Soviet Union, so you work for the state. So a lot of the farmers weren't producing. So Stalin basically looked at this guy, Lazar Kaganovich, to somehow get Ukrainians to collectivize the farms or work on the collective farms. And he
This
said,
guy was in charge of Ukraine.
well, he was like the administrator. His job, he was an organizer. His job was to collectivize the farms.
Okay.
Okay. Get you to leave the state, your personal farm, and work for the state. And so he came to Stalin with the plan, saying that, okay, we're going to close the border. We're going to raise the quotas so they're extremely high. And until you reach your quota, you can't have any of the grain. So what happened was, and by the same time, they were exporting the grain all over the world. But they created massive starvation. And they say maybe as many as 8 million Ukrainians starved, because they call it Holodomor, man-made famine. And it's kind of interesting, because there was a guy by the name of Walter Duranty, who was a correspondent, Moscow-based correspondent for the New York Times, based in Moscow, and he basically won a Pulitzer Prize for writing, because he was writing about how successful Soviet times were with communism, socialism. It worked so well, and he obviously. He didn't know, and you have to see this movie called Mr. Jones, because that's going to you could stream it, and this is the character in the movie, Mr. Jones. He got a call, he got a tip that things are not that good in Ukraine. And so he basically went into the countryside and observed this massive famine that was going on.
Did he work for a New York Times?
He worked for Atlantic, probably. No, I'm being sarcastic, but Walter Durante was a New York
Right.
Times correspondent. He worked for the Atlantic, but he was there because he got a tip that things weren't that great. So he apparently tried to publish this article. He had a hard time getting the West to accept this and publish it. And finally, he got the Hearst Corporation to publish it and so forth. Eventually, I'm giving you away the ending of the story. The Russians eventually killed Jones. This is his real name, Mr. Jones.
Oh, really? Here? When he was back here? Or
No,
over there?
somewhere. I'm not sure if it was Kazakhstan or somewhere in.
How did they kill
It's just
him?
with a bullet.
Did they like poison him? Like they
No,
do?
they just shot him. He was shot.
Oh my God!
But anyway, so that was that was the famine, and they finally got obviously Ukrainians to work in the fields, and then it was a genocide. It was a genocide. You either work for us or you're going to all die, and a lot of them did. And then
did they indoctrinate? I don't mean to interrupt. Did they indoctrinate them with schooling too?
When you say, well, listen, if you're dying of hunger, you're not going to school. You're trying to survive. Right. So I'm sure that obviously the propaganda would be the issue, but the thing is, Ukraine were like the Mavericks. They didn't really fit into the Soviet Union because they were obviously more entrepreneurial. So. Then basically the second genocide is going on right now. Putin says there's no Ukraine, you're all Russian, and he needs Ukraine because one, it's the breadbasket of the world, but also natural resources are some of the biggest in the world. Coal, magnesium, iron ore, so much. But not only that, the technology, like space technology, the docking systems, and just productivity. They represent about 40. They used to represent about 40% of Russia's or Soviet Union's capacity. So they need that. And Brzezinski, who was the advisor to Carter, said, without Ukraine, Russia will never be a superpower. And Putin's intentions were not. He was basically an imperialist. He wanted to restore the Soviet Union to where it was. This idea of NATO. That's why they attacked. That's malarkey. And people that don't know are saying that because in order to be a member of NATO, you have to have 32 countries say yes. They never had a vote from. France never supported them. Germany never supported them, nor the United States. And even to this day, the United States has not said that they're going to support Ukraine's entrance into NATO. So that's just smokescreen. That's not the reason why. They needed Ukraine to be the superpower. And when you look at the Soviet military, about 60% of all the officers in the Soviet military were Ukrainian. About 65% of all the fighter pilots during the Soviet times were Ukrainian. And, so plus the fact that his advisors said that he could take Ukraine in 3 days. And when Lloyd Austin went before our Congress and they were talking about the situation in Ukraine, Lloyd Austin said 3 days to a week, Russia will be able to take Ukraine. So basically that is why Putin invaded Ukraine, because he wanted to reestablish the empire, and he still does. When he said that the greatest strategy in 2010, when he first became president of Russia, he said that the greatest tragedy of this century is the breakup of the Soviet Union. and today is 2024, he still has that mentality. So it's not just going to be Ukraine. That's happening in Moldova, and it's happening in Georgia. Georgia basically, the government is pro West, and basically that's the other way around. I guess it's the president is pro West, but the government in Georgia is pro Russian right now.
All right. So, do you blame President Obama? Do you blame President Biden for this current situation?
Well, you have to. The only way you deal with the Russians is through strength. That's it. Sanctions is a cop-out. When the Russians, when Yanukovych, they had the riots in Kyiv, and Yanukovych had to relinquish his presidency. He went to Russia. They didn't have a president, but there was a prime minister. So Putin, this is right after Sochi.
What year was it?
2014.
Okay.
Putin basically looked at this as being an opportune time. So he basically went into Crimea. He took Crimea.
Yeah.
The prime minister of Ukraine calls Obama and says, "What do we do?" Obama says, "Don't resist. The United States is not going to help you. You're on your own." Ukraine had 6,000 combat-ready troops. So they didn't do anything. But it was so easy that the next thing they went into Donetsk, then they went into Luhansk without a fight. I mean, they didn't have any. So then they had a lot of volunteers. And, of course, Russia continued the narrative that we're not the invaders. It's basically the local population. But they found 1,000 Russian tanks, and someone said, "Well, where did you get the 1,000 tanks?" Well, they were in a warehouse, that type of deal. But basically, what happened was Obama did not help the Ukrainians. So when they put the army to be resistant, the prime minister called Obama and said, "We need night vision goggles. We need javelins," as he mentioned, "and we need reconnaissance." So you've heard the story, what Obama gave them.
They have blankets, right?
Blankets. He gave them ready-to-eat meals, and he gave them reconnaissance that was 5 days old. Figure that one out. So, but they held, the Ukrainians held and actually pushed back the so-called Donetsk troops to the point that Russia had to come across the border with their first military to put a halt to it. So at that time, they signed another agreement, second agreement. You had the Budapest Agreement back in 1994, and now you have another agreement, which was the Minsk Accord. They broke both of them. Now, as far as Biden and Obama, what happened was Trump became the president after Obama's term, and Trump basically sent the first weapons from the United States. Obama never sent weapons to Ukraine. Trump was the first one, sent them javelins, sent them, they had joint military exercise in Ukraine and things like that. Putin got upset about that, but fine. When Biden came into office, okay, after the Afghanistan fiasco, and Putin's looking around, and he's saying, "Oh my God, the same people that were in the administration, under Obama administration, they're there." You have Jake Sullivan. You have Biden in there, not Biden, Blinken, and some of the others. It was the same team. So Putin is thinking, well, they didn't do
Why
anything.
not take the rest of Ukraine?
They didn't do anything before. Yeah. And the whole time when they were bringing up all of the military, it was like 150,000 troops and all these tanks. When they were bringing them up, the only thing the Biden administration said was, be careful. You're going to have sanctions like you cannot believe. Sanctions, it's going to kill you. It's going to kill your economy and a whole bit. So 2 days before the invasion happened, okay, finally Biden committed to military aid. Up until that time, zero. So Obama gave nothing. Biden waited until the last minute. What should have happened, it's like a chess match, You're going to have 100 tanks here. We're going to give Ukraine 100 tanks on the other side. You're going to pull up these howitzers, whatever. We're going to give Ukraine. So you have a balance. So I don't think Putin would ever have attacked if he knew, the resistance that Ukrainians were going to give him. And they developed, drone technology. Now they're supposedly the experts in the world on drone technology because they developed that. And they have they had 300,000 IT people in Ukraine that could develop these kind of things.
Well, what I found interesting in researching this, Russia invaded the Crimea right at the end of February 2014.
Right.
Earlier that month, Hunter Biden received $3.5 million payment for consultancy work from a woman named Alana Baturina, who was the wife of the former mayor of Moscow. This was just prior to the invasion. And at that time, Vice President Biden was spearheading the Obama administration's Ukraine policy. Do you think that they turned their head because of the payoff that they got?
Who's they?
Biden and the Obama administration.
Well, I don't know. Obama never did anything. I don't know. I don't think Obama really cared about what's happening in Europe. He was more interested in domestic issues, spreading the wealth, and that was his agenda. He really didn't care much about what's happening in Ukraine. If he did,
but Pete, he gave Ukraine blankets when they needed
I know.
weapons.
That's what I'm saying. If he was really interested in preventing a war, he would have given Ukraine everything they needed. And he was, even though the State Department, the Congress, and the Senate, they approved weapons, Obama said no when he was the president. Biden is basically, I believe, based on the policies, it's really Obama's third, presidency, really, because I think his people were behind the scenes making all the decisions, and even look at the people that were there. I mean, they're all.
Well, to me, this $3.5 million $3.5 million that Hunter Biden got from the wife of the ex-mayor of Moscow. That was a money laundering thing, right?
Yeah.
To buy us off.
Yeah. Well, it could be. I mean, who knows? I mean, I don't know. All I can tell you is the things that I know. And Biden did not do much. Whether or not the 3.5 was a buyout, whatever, to pay someone off, I can't really comment on it. But I do know that Biden didn't do anything for Ukraine until now. And now they're always late to the game. They don't give. I mean, the idea of Russia attacking Ukraine, and they can't go after the source of the attack. They have to wait until it comes into Ukraine, not having the ability to go into Russia and knock out the planes that are carrying these glide bombers. I mean, that's what you have to do, because you can't bring a glide bomber down with an artillery. You can't do it. You have to go and knock out the planes, and those are based in Russia. So when Biden says that's going to escalate, I don't understand that, because Russia has done everything conceivably possible. They used every single thing in their armament. How much more can you escalate? Now, if he uses nuclear weapons, of course, that's a different ballgame, but that would be the only thing he could do. And the Russians have always been good about threatening the whole world with nuclear weapons. Now, we could, get in their face But we can't keep giving in, because there's a philosophy in the Soviet Union. You take two steps, you take one step back, and that's what they've been doing. Now, of course, I think it's a little bit too late, because as far as giving those ATACMS and so forth, I guess late is better than never. They should have had them a lot earlier. Every city that the Russians came in, okay, their modus operandi is to level it. All of those cities, Bakhmut and all of them, they've been leveled. That's
It's a tragedy.
yeah. They don't care about human beings. They don't really care about. I mean, right now, Russia is losing about 2,000 soldiers per day, and they don't care. They just waves and waves of people coming in.
Well, let's get into that a little bit. How many soldiers has Ukraine lost?
Well, they don't really have that publicized. I know I hear that Russia's about 750,000 in that range. I don't know what the actual figures are for Ukraine. Substantially less, because they're not going through suicidal squads. They just have layers and layers. These guys go in, and then maybe out of 40, one is still alive. You have another 40 come through. You have maybe 6 guys that are holding the front. So they keep doing the waves and waves.
Ugh. You think the Russian people would get tired of that?
They don't know. The Russian people don't know what's going on, because the only thing they have is the government-controlled press. And if you basically are a correspondent or whatever television producer, you can only put out what the government wants. If you put out something contrary to the government, you're going to be dead.
So have the Russians been committing atrocities?
Oh,
in
absolutely,
Ukraine?
absolutely.
Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I mean,
People don't know this.
Well, here's the thing that bothers me, though, is the fact that there's a lot of misinformation that is happening in Russia, according to AP. Okay, that is misinformation that's going into the States, and people are buying this, and that's the part that makes me really angry, because we have free press. We should be able to know better if you read about it. But according to AP, they spend over $100 million a year just for disinformation. I don't know if you know this guy. I was showing this.
Oh, yeah.
This is a picture. I don't know if you can pick this up. This is basically a former news director. His name is Hanek. Russian. His name is Jack Hanek, but he works for Konstantin Molofeyev. That's who he works for, and he's in jail now. He was arrested, and he's sitting in jail in England, and he's supposed to be, basically coming to the States because the FBI has a warrant for his arrest for working for an oligarch that is on the sanctions list, and he lied to the FBI. Now, the thing is, here's a guy that he's 47 years old, 50 years old now probably. A Fox News director. 15 years he worked there. Now, my question is that why Tucker Carlson is so pro-Russian? The stuff that he comes out on television is absolutely mind-boggling. It's all full of lies. When he says, as you know, the atrocities that the Russians have committed, they bombed in Kyiv. That was the largest cancer hospital in Europe, children's cancer hospital. The Russians bombed that. They bombed.
They leveled it?
Well, they didn't level it because it was a big hospital, but there's kids in there. So these guys have 2 strikes. One, they're dying, young kids. Mothers are grieving, and then now the Russians are really going to stick it to them. They're going to bomb the hospital. Okay, and then in Russian, what they target, they don't just target the military. They're targeting civilians. They're hitting hospitals. That's the target for them. Museums, universities, libraries. Then you get a guy like Tucker Carlson says, frankly, quote, I would like to see the Russians win. What kind of answer is that? I don't understand that. And the things he's on television now in Russia, talking about how great Russia is with all of and the thing that is amazing is the fact that supposedly did this interview with Putin. Putin was he was the puppeteer. Carlson was the puppet because there was no interview. He was doing, and there's so many now. This is just one individual, but how many people have gotten monies to give the Russian narrative? I mean, some of the things I hear from prominent people, it just it's amazing because it's not even true. If they read and did their own homework.
Well, the one getting money I'm concerned with is Hunter Biden and Biden himself. Those are the ones I'm concerned with.
Well, this guy, he's the director of news. He got a lot of money, and just to give you an idea,
Director of news for
Fox News.
Oh, for Fox?
For Fox News, 15 years, Fox News. I don't know if you get the picture of him. Okay, Fox News, very influential. Tucker Carlson comes from them. Is that where Tucker got his misinformation? My personal feelings are, and I've talked to, and I can't tell you the names of these people because it's a private conversation. I talked to a former ambassador to Ukraine. I talked to a couple generals that were involved in NATO at different functions. These were personal conversations. And I told them, I believe that he's a paid Russian lobbyist, Tucker.
Well,
So I mean, but this guy, whatever Hunter Biden did, those are avaricious reasons for himself. This is damaging the whole Ukrainian country. They're going out and providing information that is totally wrong. It's undermining Ukrainians, and it's a lie, pack of lies. And then I hear people that watch Tucker and they say, "Oh, this guy's fantastic." I think he's a paid prostitute, really, political prostitute.
Well, I don't know much about Tucker Carlson, but I'm very concerned about President Biden and his son Hunter.
Well, that's a small thing. This involves the whole population, 40 million people. Hunter's one family, whatever. There's crooks in every society. So he was a thief, no question about it. But the money that he got is, obviously he should go to jail for it. But this is more damning, and this takes, for somebody in his role to lie and disparage Ukrainians when it's not even true. That is a bigger issue. It really is.
Well, let's get back to these atrocities. Now, I've heard that the Russians have kidnapped children there and brought them back to Russia.
Yeah,
is that true?
Well, I mean, that's all over the news because that's why Putin basically, he has an arrest warrant out in international courts because of that, because his office and whoever was responsible for running that department, they have over 20,000 that they say that were kidnapped. Matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, they had kids in Washington, D.C., basically at the one of the monuments meeting to get awareness for the missing kids that have been kidnapped. Yes.
How many of them are there?
Well, I mean, 20,000, 30,000, who really knows for sure, but it's a lot. And when they go into an area and they occupy it, they take the kids and they send them to re-education, I guess, schools, whatever, and they, obviously destroy the Ukrainian identity. They say they're Russian, and this is, you don't speak Ukrainian anymore. You have to speak Russian. So, I mean, yeah, it happens quite a bit.
That's unbelievable. Well, let's see. Let's go to March of 2016. Vice President Biden threatens Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko with rescinding $1 million in U.S. loan guarantees unless he fires the Ukrainian prosecutor.
No, you got it wrong. It's $1 billion.
You're right, $1 billion.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ukrainian prosecutor General Viktor Shokin, who was investigating his son's company, Burisma. Specifically, Biden said, "I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion."
Yeah, I remember that. I know all about that. I don't know.
Now, what do you know about Burisma?
It was basically Yanukovych, the guy that left, that was the president. It was part of that group. In other words, Yanukovych was the president that promised Ukraine to be part of the European Union, and he lied to everybody. He reneged, and he had an alliance with Putin. And the guy that ran it, Burisma, he is affiliated with that part of it. In other words, he is in that same party, in that same category that was part of the Putin entourage, so to speak.
Right, but Burisma hired Biden's son Hunter, put him on the board of directors, right?
Yeah, but
knowledge.
I am more concerned about what Russia's doing to Ukraine. That's one little thing, and to me, it's a minor thing because it's one individual, one family. Okay, and he enriched himself. I'm talking about the bigger thing about what is Russia is doing to Ukrainians. They're killing Ukrainians. Biden didn't kill anybody, and so he made a little bit of money. But so he's a thief, throw him in jail. We're talking about the bigger, we're talking about the invasion of Ukraine.
All right.
All right. And here's one. Here's one. Do you ever hear of Konstantin Nikolaev?
No.
Okay. He gave, this came out because Mike Johnson, he withheld the votes on arming Ukraine and held it back for 6 months. He got $37,000 in campaign contributions from a company called American Ethylene Company. Okay, it's an American company out
He
of
withheld the votes where? In the U.S. Congress?
Remember, he had to bring in. You had to have Mike Johnson had to bring it to a vote whether or not Ukraine would get additional.
Oh, okay.
So he held it back. He didn't. He wouldn't bring it on the floor for 6 months, and there were a lot of Ukrainians that got killed. Now,
And he got paid off.
I didn't say paid off. I'm saying one of the supposedly he gave it back. But one of the I'm talking about basically Russian disinformation. There are a lot of people, a lot of politicians in America are getting money to basically promote the Russian agenda. And I don't know what, the fact is he gave it back because when he was holding back the vote, it came out that he got $37,000. He got $37,000 from American Ethylene Company, a Texas-based company that was owned by Konstantin Nikolaev, Mikhail Yuriev, Andrei Konobatev, okay? And this guy, by the way, Konstantin Nikolai, okay, he is part owner of the Tula Works Corporation, which supplies ammunition to Russian forces in the invasion of Ukraine. That is the guy that gave money to Johnson. Now, the question is, if he gave money to Johnson, how many other politicians are getting that voted against the aid to Ukraine? Now, not only that, I mean, it just gets better. He also is a financial backer of Maria Butina. You know who Maria Butina was? She was a spy in this country that, set up she intermingled with all these politicians, and so eventually she got caught. We shipped her back. There was, an exchange for them, but he was the major backer. And
was that the one that
the redhead?
Well, from Trump Tower that went to Trump?
Yeah,
Tower?
yeah, I think she was there.
Okay.
No, I don't. No, that's a different one. This is some. She did kind of commingle and got into a gun club and met a lot of people, and I guess she tried to be influential, but anyway, they caught her. But this guy, Konstantin Nikolaev, okay, he backed her, and when Mike Johnson found out that he gave contribution to his political campaign, he returned it. But he returned it after everyone, because you could find out who's contributing what to who, and I've done that before. If I did that on Gates, some of the things he was saying, I'm saying, who the heck is backing him? So I actually went in and I looked at all his major contributors.
Yeah.
But he also gave $37,000 to his election campaign, but it was returned. He doesn't really. I'm not saying that he did anything nefariously. It just happened. But the point that I'm trying to make is, if he got $37,000, how many other congressmen that are voting against Ukraine or have negative, feelings or, I can tell you right now, there are some of the things I hear, and if you want me to name names, I'll go through them. There's a whole bunch of them that have said things about Ukrainians that are absolutely crazy. Now, the biggest thing is the fact that if you encourage Ukraine and basically give them arms, that Russia is going to get closer to China, and that combination is really bad. So don't give any arms to Ukraine. Let them die and let Russia take over the country, because that way you'll keep Russia from getting closer to China. And you know who said that? Vic Ramaswamy, Vance. I mean, why would they say something so stupid and irresponsible? I mean, these guys are supposed to be smart. They went to Yale. Both are lawyers.
Wow, there's all sorts of stuff going on.
And I got this person. You hear of Tenet? Here's Laura Chen. She's a YouTuber. She's also was just recently arrested. She basically is based out of Ottawa, Canada, and she's a very attractive woman. But there's a picture of her. That's her.
Very, very attractive.
But what her job was, she was working for Russia Today, and she had a bank account in the Czechia Republic. So Russia was funneling money to her, and she was funneling money to this Tenet. There are these what do you call it? Podcasts. One of them that comes to mind is Johnson. He's, I guess, a pretty big one. And basically,
You mean the Speaker of the House?
No. What the heck was his name? Well, no. He's just a podcaster. He's just basically on a podcast. So she was to hire a bunch of podcasters, like 600 of them, to basically promote Russia as a good country and to disparage Ukrainians. And when oh God, what's his name? It is Johnson, but I can't. It's not Mike Johnson. It's not the congressman. It is basically. I don't have that written down. But anyway, the FBI visited him, and they asked him about this because he got paid. They asked him, "Do you know that's the trail of money comes from Russia?" He said no. All of them said the same thing, that they had no clue that it was coming from Russia, that they were dealing with Chen, but Chen is a Russian agent. So was arrested in Canada for doing that. So those are my biggest concerns than Hunter. Hunter is small time in relationship to this.
All right. Well, let me tell you some more stuff about Biden. All right. May 19th, 2021, President Biden waived sanctions on the Russian Nord Stream 2 pipeline.
That was terrible.
Which would connect the Russian Arctic underneath the Baltic Sea to Germany. This action ensured that Europe would be dependent on Russian natural gas rather than American natural gas, and give Putin valuable leverage over Ukraine and other Eastern European states. Prior to the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, Russia had to transport natural gas through Ukraine to Europe. Now the Nord Stream 2 pipeline would bypass Ukraine, depriving it of transit revenues and make it more vulnerable to Russian aggression. Was this waiver of sanctions the result of payoffs made to Hunter Biden?
I don't know why he did that. It was lousy. Trump obviously.
It's a pattern, though.
Yeah. I mean, there is a pattern of some sort, I guess. That didn't make sense. Obviously, it was the worst thing he could do because, as Trump pointed out, you know, you're making Europe more dependent on Russia.
Yeah.
And you're fueling their economy.
Yes.
So that you're right.
Terrible. All right, here, let's go on. Wednesday, January 19th, 2022, just before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, President Biden said he predicts Putin will invade Ukraine and that NATO needs to be in agreement on a response. Specifically, Biden said, I think what you're going to see is that Russia will be held accountable if it invades, and it depends on what it does. It's one thing if it's a minor incursion and NATO ends up having to fight about what to do or not to do. At this time, Russia had been amassing tens of thousands of troops and artillery at Ukraine's border. Did this weak and disastrous statement by President Biden give Putin the go-ahead to invade Ukraine?
Absolutely. That's true. That's absolutely true. And he even said, I mean, you can't make this up, but he says, well, you know, if you take a little bit of Ukraine, it's okay. I mean, he said that. I mean, my God, for someone that's a world leader, that is a major mistake.
All right, Pete, do you think Russia would have invaded Ukraine if President Trump was in office?
Not based on past experiences, because, and I'm not sure. I don't know some of the things that Trump says. I don't know how realistic it is. Like he could end the war in 2 days, but I don't think, because see, Trump gave Ukraine weapons. Biden never did until after the invasion. And by the time they got there, and I have a feeling. No, I don't think he would have invaded Ukraine if Trump was the president. I don't think Trump would have said that that you could take part of Ukraine or.
All right. Do you think that now Trump is going to be president again? Do you think the war in Ukraine will end?
I'll tell you, Putin is an autocratic, leader. He's a terrorist. He's if you look at history, when you have an autocratic leader, they never resign. There's only two things that causes change. You kill the guy, someone has to kill Putin, or you destroy his economy. And I know one of the things that Trump has done, he said he's going to bring the price of
that'll starve him.
$30 per barrel.
Yep.
And you saw what happened as soon as Trump became elected, the ruble the purchasing power there just went right down the tube. And that is important, because what we were doing under the Biden administration, we basically we halted exportation of liquid petroleum gas to Europe, okay, and because of the green energy deal, but we told them to continue to buy. Germany says, "Well, where do we buy our liquid?"
Yeah, he gave the go-ahead to finish the pipeline.
Well, actually, it was. I don't know how they get it. I think they get the across over the land. It's not. That's the way they had those. I don't think it's going through the Nord Stream pipeline.
Well, it's natural gas that's going through that pipeline.
But they have pipelines over the land too. I think that's where they get most of it.
Yeah, there's two pipelines. I don't really.
Well, one of them got blown up. One of them was blown up. One is still open. But then they also get deliveries other ways, and that in itself is not a way that you win a war, because it gives him money. And in actuality, when Germany was in a recession, the economy was pretty good in Russia, because they were selling, India was buying $2 billion worth of gas, petroleum, prior to the war. Now they're buying $45 billion. So the revenue, okay, so they're not selling it to the West, but China and India made up, whatever they lost. So their revenue never went down. They had money for the war.
Right, but they needed at a certain dollar level in order to thrive.
Yeah, they need
right?
$60, $70, $80 a barrel. 30 will kill their economy. So either someone's got to kill Putin, or we bring the price of energy down.
Well, it's funny you mentioned kill Putin. I want to read you something. I watched a video on Prager University, Dennis Prager. You ever watch those things?
No, I never watched it.
He's pretty good. But this is what he said. This was a podcast about the Ukrainian war. We need, and he's in favor of us defending Ukraine or helping Ukraine defend themselves. All right, but he's also afraid of nuclear war. All right. This is what he says. We need peace as much as we need to defend Ukraine. Both are utterly necessary. I don't want to gamble with the threat of nuclear weapons. Our task is to defend Ukraine, not to remove the Russian president. Is Ukraine ready to negotiate a peace deal? Does Ukraine trust Donald Trump to negotiate the deal, stop the carnage, and provide a lasting peace?
Let me ask you, though, what peace treaty have the Russians ever kept? You have two of them. You have the Budapest Memorandum. You have the Minsk Accord. There have been all these salt meat treaties that we've had.
I agree. We can't trust them.
You can't. The treaty is, you need something with teeth. So Zelensky says, okay, we'll negotiate, but give us NATO. And that's a problem because you have countries, the United States is not ready to vote for Ukraine as part of NATO. That's a fact. Nor is Hungary. I don't know about Germany, and I don't know about Slovakia.
Well, look what Trump did with the embassy in Israel, right? Nobody would do it.
That's right.
They said that, there'll be all-out war if he does it, and then he did it, and nothing happened. Maybe it'll be the same with if they let Ukraine into NATO.
Well, that has to have something with teeth. You can't just, because we know, everybody knows, the whole world knows, another treaty means nothing. What Putin needs right now, he needs to rearm, because I cannot tell you, they've destroyed like 2,000, 3,000 tanks. Their military, they have to go into armament that's World War II.
They got North Korean soldiers over there fighting for them. They don't have enough troops anymore.
No, but Ukraine, see, they have a larger population now. They have outside, not only North Korea, but Yemen and the Houthis are going in also to help. They have other African countries.
That I didn't know.
Yeah.
But it's truly an unholy alliance that's being formed between China and Iran and Russia and Syria, and it's a bad situation.
I have more confidence, not more confidence in Trump. And I voted for Trump this time. I voted for Trump last time. And I've never voted for a Democratic president because I'm a true Republican. But I am concerned about that element of the Republican Party that is mouthpiecing Putin's playbook. It's amazing. We got some smart guys that are doing that, some women. But where are they getting this? And listening to the podcast, those guys they're paid. They're paid lobbyists.
The X factor here is nuclear weapons, though. The one thing we don't want is nuclear war.
So give up Ukraine?
I'm not saying give up Ukraine, but even Zelensky the other day said he's willing to negotiate a treaty.
If they get into NATO.
Okay.
That's a big if. And Zelensky, the meeting that Zelensky had with Trump when he was here.
Yep. He didn't look too happy after that.
No, but you know what he told me? He says we're going to go. We need NATO because you can't. The treaty is right. Worthless. It's not. It's worthless. It's you might as well give it to.
This is what I say. we have to trust President Trump on this to do the right thing. We have to.
Well, but Zelensky has to. The United States has provided more funding, more weapons, and so forth to keep it going. Without the United States, it's going to be difficult for Zelensky to maintain what they're doing. So if Trump says he could, end the war in 2 days, he may not like it, but he has to listen to him. But I don't think the Ukrainians are going to roll over. Like Putin wants Ukraine for peace to get rid of their army. Are you kidding me?
No. Well, that's a non-starter.
I mean,
they already tried that. They got rid of their nuclear weapons and everything. Right? Where did that?
And Yanukovych, when Yanukovych was the president of Ukraine, he was pro-Russian. He reduced his troops to 6,000. 6,000. That's all they had, combat-ready troops, and that's not going to happen.
No.
But I think what Putin's going to probably do is probably going to, like they did in Moldova, and like they're doing in Georgia now, and even now it's happening in Romania. I understand that one of the individuals that's leading is a pro-Putin guy.
Oh, really?
And they did that with Slovakia. That Slovakia has a pro-Putin guy, and Orban has been in bed with Putin for years. But according to his independent journalist in Hungary, he says that he was very anti-Russian until he had the deal with Gazprom, and he thinks he's getting paid a lot of money to maintain that pro-Russian attitude.
Well, I have all the faith in the world and President Trump.
I do too. I agree. I think I feel more comfortable with President Trump versus Biden because the question is who was calling the shots. I don't think it was Biden, and I think it goes back to Blinken and well probably Jake Sullivan had a lot to do with it because he was the instrument behind the Afghanistan.
And ultimately Obama.
It was. I really feel it was Obama's third term, because of the players that he had.
Well, who said this about Biden? It might have been Obama. He said you can trust him to make the wrong decision every single time when it comes to foreign policy, right?
Obama said that. Yeah, he says, except he said Biden could F it up every time. Give it to Biden, he'll F it up.
Yeah, so anyway. Well, Pete, this has been a great discussion. How can people get in touch with you for more information if they want it?
Well, readily, they can call my office or me personally.
Do you have an email you want to give out?
Peter, just my name, Peter Goletz, last name Goletz @Comcast.net.
Yeah, I mean, nobody knows more about this stuff than you do. So, hopefully the kids in Guilford and around Connecticut can watch this and learn a little bit more about what's going on. And hopefully this all comes to a peaceful conclusion here pretty soon.
I hope so. I hope so. And it
can't go on.
It can't go on. But I think Trump is on the right track. I think Putin knows that he can't threaten Trump because you don't know what's going to come out with Biden. They never made a decision. They were always reacting to something they did, and it was always too late. Always a couple of days too late, months late, 6 months late. And that's not good.
No, you weakness, and you see what results from weakness here. But anyway, thank you for coming today.
Yeah, thank you for having me here. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about Ukraine, and hopefully Ukraine will live again.
Okay, and everybody, if you want to see this interview, it will be on GCTV, Guilford Public TV. A big thank to Matt and Shannon and the people from Guilford Public TV. We couldn't do this without them. And if anybody want to check out any of the other interviews we have done, go to Greater Education Council of CT.org. They're all up there. Thank you.